G'day fellas and welcome to a tier list. We're doing an Age of Empires 4 landmark tier list, as you can see down the bottom, as the name would allude. We've got all of the new civilizations and their landmarks put here, ready for us to slot in onto a tier list. And the question is, where do they all bloody well go? Well, that is what we're here to answer today. Now remember, tier lists are subjective. That means that yours may be different from mine and yours, well, it might be the same as mine, and that's okay. That's what makes us different. So without further ado, let's get in, and we're going to jump in to one of my favorite landmarks. I genuinely think this landmark is S tier. I think this is by far the best landmark that you can go as, drum roll. I was going to go, it is the Ottomans. It is the Twin Minaret Madrasa. I love this landmark. I think this is amazing. I've talked about this many times before, but this landmark enables an Ottoman player to stay in their base a lot longer than what they should be able to stay in their base. Now, of course, there are other things that help them stay in the base, such as Anatolian Hills, which is one of the unique techs that you can gain, one of the unique techs that you can get from the Imperial Council. And this actually stacks quite well. A lot of people would think that there wouldn't be synergy in this landmark with Anatolian Hills, but essentially the way that it works, or the best way to think about it, is a bit of a tag team. So for this landmark to work, what you're doing is you're tag teaming it. You're starting off and you're tagging in, and you're just going to put all of your food villas on this landmark. You're going to eat all the berries up, and then you're going to take it off. And then you're going to move over to another food source, and then as soon as the berries come back, you tag back in. You're just eating all the berries like crazy, and that just extends out your ability to remain in your base, remain safe. It means if you're playing up against civilizations that are a bit more aggressive, got a bit more map control, maybe you've gone for a second or even a third TC, and it's getting a little bit harder for you to grab those food sources, this is going to extend you out even further because it's 700 food pretty much every 2 minutes and 30 seconds that just keeps respawning for you. So I think that this landmark is incredibly strong just because you can use it in pretty much every environment. There's a couple of exceptions to that. YouTube, please don't demonetize me right there. That was not intentional. There's a couple of exceptions, but I think in almost every single circumstance, you can guarantee this landmark is going to be good. Now, when it comes to the next landmark, this is a landmark, the Sultan trade network, that a lot of people still rate quite highly. Me personally, I don't actually rate it that highly. And we'll talk a little bit about why that is. So the Sultan trade network, you start out with 2 traders already in there. It's trickling away. You've got 28 gold a minute for each trader that's in there. That's actually a pretty decent trade run, but typically you'd want to have your traders doing the longest possible trade that they can. Now, a lot of people would look at this and be like, okay, well, it's a decent landmark, okay? Because not only do you have access to trade through this landmark, because it acts as a market. Where is it? There it is. So you can trade the traders. But for me, the big thing is that you're going to be tempted to make traders, and they're also going to be traders that are not an efficient use of your resources at an early stage in the game. So one of the things I was talking to Muslim about this, and he said it feels good to him because he's adding to his economy. And that's definitely true. You're adding to your economy when you're dropping down these traders, but they are expensive. 120 resources here, and realistically 28 gold a minute, it's not a great trade. If you were doing your big boy trades, you know, the full length of the map ones, I could 100% understand it. But to me, it just feels like it would be the equivalent of having a town center. Imagine that you age up to the feudal age with a town center, and your villages are 120 resources. That, to me, that's what this is, because you're not going to be taking full advantage of your traders, and so they're never going to be optimal. At best, they serve as 0.75 of a villager. And the other argument is, well, look, it's decent in the late game because it's a guaranteed gold source. You know, you've always got 6 traders in the Sultan trade network, and that's always going to keep it safe. Yeah, that's true, but also that means that you're also going to be down 6 population slots in the late game. You're going to have 6 units that never scale with upgrades. You're going to have, unless you pull those traders out and actually put them on a decent trade network, then realistically, it's not, in my opinion, not a good investment. To me, it doesn't make sense to be throwing, you know, an extra 4 traders in there with each one costing 120. So you're talking about, you know, 480 resources that's going into suboptimal economic production. That's essentially it. Next landmarks up, we're going to start with the MIA because I'm not too interested in this landmark. The MIA, I'm a big fan of this landmark. I think this is really good. I'd be very close to calling this one S tier as well, but we're going to put it in the A tier. So the Mathemat Imperial Armory. So this is going to train out your units, your siege for you. and it's going to slowly train it out. It's going to occupy a slot on your blacksmith as well. And essentially, it works out to be about 6.5 villages in the Castle Age, and then after you go to Imperial Age, depending on which landmark you go with, that can go up even further to about 9 villages. So it really scales into the late game. One of the things that I think that this landmark does incredibly well is it puts siege pressure on your enemy. Your enemy is now forced to make siege to counter your siege, and that's not something that you want to do. You don't really want to be forced to do something. You know, like we talk about Mongols often in the early game, they force you to play a certain way. Well, the Ottomans here force you to play a certain way because there's always going to be a mangonel coming out of the landmark 3 minutes after you age up, or in some cases 2 minutes and 15 seconds after you age up to the 3rd age. So because of that, I think there's a lot of power in this landmark. And it's one of those things where at the end of the game, you're not going to really notice this because that's not where the draw is. It's not on the resource charts that you're going to notice this. It's in the timings that it's really going to help you. Think about, you know, maybe you're getting pushed in the feudal age, or rather maybe your enemy is pushing you and they're in the feudal age. Maybe it's Archer Knight and you drop down this landmark and maybe you just manage to hold on by the skin of your teeth, but there's still a ball of archers underneath your town center. Boom. The mangonel's going to clean them up. You know, it just provides so much help for you, and I think that this is going to be. I genuinely can't imagine any other way that Ottomans gets played in the next month or so, other than these 2 landmarks coming up in the 1st and the 2nd, and well, I mean technically the 2nd and the 3rd age. But the next landmark that we're going to be talking about is the Istanbul Imperial Council. Now, this landmark enables you to go from 5 technologies in the Imperial Council up to 7. So at the moment, the most common technology route that you see players going for is Anatolian Hills. So that's your tier 1 into military campus, and then from there going into where is it? I'm looking for it. Fast training, and then from there going into advanced academy, and then into siege crews. Now, pretty much. There's nothing else in here that you would really warrant you needing extra points other than situations where you might be in a pinch. As an example, maybe it's early feudal age, maybe you're getting pushed, maybe you're having trouble. I don't know, maybe in some situation, field work might actually be reasonable. There is a fast castle build order, which is going to be pretty decent, I suspect, up in certain matchups, maybe against the Delhi. Maybe not against the Delhi, maybe just against the HRE, that it might actually be decent to go for field work. And then Janissary Company, I think, and I've said before with this, I suspect this is only going to be ever good in timing attacks and in situations where you're actually dying and you really need units right now. But to me, it doesn't make sense to be investing in this because this is a static amount of units. You're not going to be getting back the same way that you would be getting. And I'm not sure if I mentioned siege crews, but that's another core technology. So advanced academy, siege crews, fast training, and military campus. These guys are all core technologies. And then you can kind of switch out the first one, whether you want to go Anatolian Hills, whether you want to go field work. For me, meta drums, it's useless. And so the reason why I'm talking about Imperial Council, because that's where this lies, right? Like the whole reason why we're looking at the Istanbul Imperial Palace is because it increases the vizier point limit by 2. But do you really need those extra 2 points? Because realistically, the best thing that you're going to be getting is trade bags. Now, I would argue that there's going to be a certain type of play style that you're going to be able to make with the Ottoman civilization that's going to enable you to take advantage of trade. I can really see it coming because if you're trading, you're probably making mogul moves. You don't need the free siege because you've got such a great income. But for me, I think that this one definitely goes into the C tier. And until somebody works out the build order, I'm suspecting it's going to be the Sultan Trade Network into the Istanbul Imperial Palace. And then from there, it would be into the final landmark, which would be the Western Digital Castle, aka I think it's the Seagate Keep or the Seagate Castle. We'll have to double check. I always get this one mixed up. It is the Seagate Castle, yeah. I think that there's definitely like an option for trade here for the Ottomans, and I think it's probably going to involve this landmark just so that you can get trade bags, and you might also be able to, like, you know, pop out Janissary Company. Maybe that's the play. Maybe you intentionally rely on Janissary Company as a way to try and stay alive, and then you can utilize trade bags as well, because you're not only are you going to have those extra 2 points, but you're also going to get those points in quite a bit faster as well, because it doubles the experience that you get from the Imperial Council. So I think that this is probably a C tier landmark at the moment. As I said, it probably will change as we start to see trade developing. Obviously, we've seen Crackety here really look to pioneer trade. He's taken it with a lot of civilizations. We've seen him bring it out on different levels, and pros have started picking it up now from Crackety. So I think that there's definitely a potential option for it. But moving forward and continuing to talk about that trade theme, it is going to be the Seagate Castle. Now, this is a landmark that's in the Imperial Age. You don't really see it a lot, so we're going to go over it. So it acts as a keep, and then all keeps gain an aura that increase trader and trade ship movement speed by 40% and armor by 10. So it's ranged armor and melee armor. So pretty much makes them immune in the late game to, say, horseman raids. Very, very nice. But the big thing is that it increases the movement speed by 40%. And you've got to consider that a 40% increase is a very strong scaling upgrade when you also factor in trade bags, because trade bags gives you 40% gold. And so the best way to think about it, this isn't 40% plus 40%. This is 40% plus 40% and also another 40% of the 40%. It's complicated. It's complicated. But essentially all you need to know is it's a good thing. You're going to be making absolute massive amounts of money if you've got trade bags as well as this landmark. But for me, at the moment, this landmark probably sits in the C tier just because, well, realistically, I can't see trade in the current meta working as a viable thing, or at least we haven't seen it explored just yet. And until it does, this landmark is going to remain quite low down on the tier list. Moving into the next landmark that we've got, though, it is going to be the Istanbul Observatory. I think I've got that name correct. Let's double check. It is indeed the Istanbul Observatory, which acts as a university, improves the influence provided by the university and blacksmith to 60%. So what is that influence, you might be wondering? So the blacksmith, or at least for the Ottomans, it actually provides a bonus every age that you're in. So in the Dark Age, or rather in the Feudal Age, Castle Age, and Imperial Age, you get different levels of bonus. And in the Imperial Age, it's 40%. And this landmark takes that to 60%. And essentially, it increases the influence, or it increases the rate that your military schools and also your production facilities are going to be training units. And this is really important because to me, the number one way at the moment to play the Ottomans is really relying heavily on military schools. And this really leverages that because it takes the military schools and it pumps them up to another level. An extra 20% on that production speed really helps them out. And because of that, I think that this landmark is quite a solid one for you in the late game. It also acts as a university, so you're getting 450 wood there for free. But for me at the moment, when it comes to playing as the Ottomans, I'm going to chuck that one in the A tier. I think that there are 3 mandatory landmarks that you go for, and I can't see any way that you really play it differently at the moment. Once trade gets explored, I think it's definitely going to be a bit more reliant on this bit. And we also see these landmarks really relying heavily on themselves. So this landmark also scales very well with the MIA, and that is because the MIA is going to have that production time reduced when you've got this landmark nearby. So it's one of those things that really stack up. But now we move on to the next part of the video, which is where we talk about the Malian Landmark, something that's probably, I guess I don't have as much experience with the Malian landmarks as I would say as the Ottoman landmarks. I'm still very familiar with what they do, how they work, all that good stuff. But I would say that my familiarity and my opinion on them is not going to be as strong or as harsh. But let us begin. We're going to start off with the Dark Age landmarks, or going to the Feudal Age. So it's going to be the Mansa Quarry that we start off. Now, this landmark, I think that this is a pretty, just a solid landmark, but at the same time, it's nothing special, in my opinion. So I'm going to chuck it in the A tier. It's just a flat 75 gold a minute for the rest of the game. That's it. And you can switch it to stone. So there's a couple of ways that you can use this. Most commonly, we see players switching it over to stone, and then just, after 4 minutes, adding a TC. Very nice and simple. Because, 4 times 75, that's your 300. Another way that we see players do it is just keep it on stone, and then add in a keep as soon as you've got 800 stone. So that's another way that people use it. The other way that you've got is just gold, and then really, boosting along with the gold economy. So I think that the landmark, look, it really doesn't offer anything exciting. It doesn't really offer too much strategic depth. It's a very simple landmark. And to be honest, when I saw it, I'm just like, is that it? Like, it was just, I was a bit disappointed. I felt like, sure, it's nice, it's cool, but there's not a lot of creativity that really went behind that. But I guess, it's one of those things where it's like, it's a little bit hard, isn't it? How do you, anyway, next landmark that's going to be coming up, it is going to be the trade landmark here for the Malians. So we'll pull up the Malians now and take a look. It's going to be the Saharan Trade Network. You can read what it does right there. So I think this landmark also going to be sitting in the A tier. And I genuinely think we're probably going to be seeing a lot of this landmark. I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing players actually start picking home maps based around picking the Malians on specific maps. You know, if you've watched the Road to Red Bull Wololo, you will see players save China for 4 Lakes. So the map 4 Lakes, they will save their Chinese civilization for that map because China is so good on that map that if they've got China there, they've got the highest chance of winning. And I suspect it will be the same for the Malians. If you've got Altai in the pool, if you've got Hill and Dale in the pool, anything that's got guaranteed faraway trade networks that are relatively easy to maintain control of, you can suspect this landmark will be coming out, and it will be pocket picks for players, almost certainly, because it is very difficult to stop players who are, you know, doing a lot of walling and they're doing the trading behind it. And, you know, at the same time, you're trying to add in your own TCs, and it's like now you're falling behind on economy because your enemy's booming like a madman. But for me, Malian trade is already a massive threat because of the toll outposts, but then the Saharan trade network just takes that to another level because now all of a sudden it gives you a food income as well. And food is going to be one of the most important parts for the way that the Malians play. But I digress. We take a look now at the next landmark, which is going to be coming up. So we're going to be talking about the Age 3 landmarks here. So Big Cow Landmark, a very cool landmark, if I do say so myself. No, that is not actually the name of the landmark. It is the Grand Fulani Chorale, which provides nearby cattle an extra 20 food a minute. So cattle, if they're in a cattle ranch, will give 28 food a minute. This will take it up to 48 food a minute. Cattle's actually pretty strong. It's one of the few ways in the game that you can guarantee an income in the late game without actually taking any population. Think of these guys like relics, but for food. Pretty darn good, I reckon. So I'm a big fan of this, and I like the way that it plays, but I think at the same time, it's a certain type of play style. So I'm going to be chucking this landmark here into the B tier, and I know that's probably going to shock a lot of people. A lot of people are probably going to be looking at this landmark, the Big Cow Landmark, as like, oh my god, you know, it's an S tier landmark for sure. Well, in my opinion, not really. I think that cows are just strong enough by themselves that you probably don't need this landmark to complement it. And I think that it can probably be punished pretty badly as well. We've seen quite a few people go for this landmark naked. So I say naked. No, it's more just like if you make this landmark without having cows and your enemy sees that, it seems to me like that would be a really good time to push your enemy. Not only has your enemy just gone to Castle Age, but they've said, I'm going to Castle Age and I'm going to invest 2,000 gold into cattle. You get where I'm coming from? Makes it very... you're essentially getting nothing from that landmark. And this is where I come in now with the Malian and their first S tier landmark. In my opinion, I think this landmark is S tier because of the synergies that it's got with the civilization. Throughout the civilization, the theme is gold. Obviously, the Malians, famous for Mansa Musa and his wealth, looking to try and capitalize on that. So not only do you have reduced cost and batch training here, but you have great synergy with the bonuses of the civilization. So things like the pit mine and obviously the Mansa quarry, as well as the trading. So trading is a really, really big part of the civilization. And for me, the way that I see this is kind of, to me, it's like the Burgrave Palace, but it scales throughout the game. And I think that was always one of the big issues with the Burgrave, is it looks really good, but compared to the Regnitz was always going to scale you into the game. This is always going to scale you. There's always going to be gold that you can spend on your units, and it's always going to be cheaper units. And so because of that, I think it's actually a very, very strong landmark. I rate it S tier, I rate it very highly, and I like this landmark a lot. I wouldn't be surprised if we do see players just always going for the Farimba Garrison. I don't even think I named the landmark the Farimba Garrison. So the Farimba Garrison, yeah, I just think it's probably the best landmark that the Malians have got at the moment. But not all of their landmarks are good. Not all of them are solid. Now, for me, the Fortress of the Huntress, I think that's the name of the landmark. I'll double check. It's the Fort of the Huntress. The Fort of the Huntress, this landmark, it's a little bit interesting. So it's a keep that provides stealth to all nearby units, and it gives them a little bit of a timing for that stealth. So when I rate these, this is not for like your gold tier or your plat tier, or silver tier, anything like this. It is purely for, you know, Conqueror Plus, the same level I'm playing at, you know, the level of people in tournaments, that sort of thing. For me, I look at this landmark and I just think it's a bit gimmicky. It's a bit gimmicky. If I know that my enemy has got this landmark, I'm just going to be, training a scout from my stable. I'm going to be dropping an outpost. I'm going to be dropping 2 outposts. And I know that people might look at it and go, well, Drongo, it does more than just provide stealth. It also gives Muzaffari warriors the ability to have first strike. And first strike is great, except for the fact that Muzaffari warriors kind of suck in the late game. Or not suck in the late game, but just suck in general. And Muzaffari gunners, well, they're hand cannoneers. They already deal a lot of damage. So they're just going to be overkilling units even more. If it was like, if they broke stealth and got 100% attack speed for like the next 10 seconds, then I would be like, okay, this is actually insane. Like, this is really, really good. But the fact that they only just get like a bit of extra damage, it's like they're hand cannoneers, bro. They already do 42 damage. 45 damage with all the upgrades. So they're already doing 45 damage, and you're giving them extra damage on top of that. It's like they're already one-shotting the highest health unit in the game by far. It doesn't need more attack. And so for that, in my opinion, the Fort of the Huntress, unfortunately, goes in the D tier. And we are left with 1 landmark left. It is going to be the Griot Bara. This landmark, to me, it's a little bit weird, okay? So the Griot Bara is going to be sitting in the B tier. The reason why the Griot Bara sits in the B tier is because we have to look at the text that it's got available to it. It's got 3 different texts that are available. So the way it works is you pay 300 gold, and you're going to be doing a festival, it's called. And the festival lasts for 30 seconds. And with that festival, there's a 60-second time out after the festival completes. So it takes a total of 90 seconds for you to finish the cycle. So the first festival is a food festival. So there's already a lack of synergy here because this is increasing the food gather rate by 50% for 60 seconds. Well, you're a civilization that relies heavily on gold. You're going to be focusing a lot on that. There's going to be ways for you to spend your food throughout the game. But to me, I look at this and I'm like, look, unless someone is really focusing on collecting their food. Now, I will have to double check. I'm not sure whether this affects cows, because if it does, then there might be a little bit of synergy between the Grand Fulani Chorale and the food festival. But yeah, it's not too hot. Let's just put it that way. Next up is the military festival, which is going to be increasing the military unit production speed. This is probably the most useful festival from just a late game standpoint. The other one is going to be the Siege Festival, which is also quite useful. Where the issue lies for this landmark is that time out. We talked about it before, so here you can actually see that this is a Siege Festival that lasts for 60 seconds, whereas this one, oh, hold on, these, oh, never mind, they're all 60 seconds. I do take that back. So it's a 60-second festival, followed by did they change that? I'm pretty sure it was a 30-second festival followed by a 60-second break. So they may have changed that, or I might just be wrong. I'm not 100% sure, but 60 seconds. So one of the main issues that I've got with the Griot Bara is that you can't change your festival. So in Age of Empires 3, they had a similar mechanic. It was called the Fire Pit, which was renamed to the Community Plaza, and you could do dances on it. And basically, you could switch them whenever you wanted to. Now, not only do you have to pay for them here, but you can't actually switch them out. Once you commit to it, that is it. So you really got to plan through your festivals, and it's for that reason that I don't think it's all too hot, all that good. It's still a good landmark in the late game, and still probably the better landmark to be going for if you're at that higher level. But realistically, I don't see a whole lot of use of it for it, other than maybe cracking through a couple of keeps in the late game. But the thing is, you're already going to be able to do this with bombards. I guess maybe trebuchets is where it might be a little bit different. If you've got 2 trebs out and you pop this festival, then that's going to be a dead keep for sure. These guys are going to get through it very, very quickly. And then for the military festival, I mean, we've all seen how Crackety uses this, pumping out military units non-stop. Then the food festival, I guess it's the one that really, I guess, is a bit of a head scratcher, because you'd love to be using this all the time, but unfortunately, you just can't. Well, fellas, anyway, that is the end of the video. I'm curious what you guys think. How close was this tier list to your tier list in your head? Do you agree? Do you disagree? What do you think differently? Let me know down below. And of course, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for watching.